when you first start sewing. There's so many things to take your attention and what to spend your money on. How could you possibly start sewing with all these things that you have to buy? Well, in this video, I decided it would be super fun to talk about if I was going to start sewing and learning and I had a $200 budget to do so to get all the equipment I needed, what would I buy? This is going to be so much fun. Welcome, my sewing friends, welcome. If you are actually brand new here, then welcome, very much welcome. My name's Evelyn Wood and I'm the creator of VintageSewingSchool.com, and I have helped thousands of students learn and develop their sewing skills. And I see lots and lots of new beginner sewers, and here on YouTube we talk about everything garment sewing so you can get better at your garment sewing. And we have like every day new people start sewing, and very quickly you realize, I know you've already been there, that how many things there are in sewing. It's not just the sewing machine. There's fabric, there's scissors, there's chalk, there's patterns, there's tape measures, there's all these things that you need to buy. And how could you possibly get started if you don't have all these things? Well, my friends, fear not, because these things should not hinder you in getting started sewing. Sure, lots of these things are nice and you will want to upgrade as time goes by, but you do not need fancy equipment to get started sewing. So I'm going to run you through a list of if I was going to start sewing again and learn to sew, what would I spend my sewing budget of $200 on? And now this is not to get nitty picky on $1 here and $1 there. Think about it very much more the percentages and the ideas that I'm giving you on where and what to spend money on and where to save money on. So we're not going to get too nitty picky on the every single dollar. We're talking big picture here. And the first one, the most obvious, is the sewing machine. I would spend $100 of my budget on a sewing machine. Here's what I would do. I would look for a good, well-maintained, well-looked after secondhand machine. I would probably go to Marketplace or local classifieds and I would find one there. Might take a few weeks to find something. You won't find it straight away, but that would be my preference. And you honestly probably find one for less. What I think you should really, really do if you're on a tight budget, I bet there is someone that you know that has a sewing machine that they are not using that you could borrow. I almost guarantee, 80% of us there will fall in that category that you could borrow a sewing machine from someone. That's what I would really, really recommend to get started sewing. Now, I've made videos here on choosing sewing machines. The first and foremost thing when you're starting is you do not need anything fancy. Trust me, you won't be using all those fancy things and you don't know how to use it all yet. You just need to get started and learn. Because once you've made a few projects and you get used to knowing what a sewing machine does, you'll know what kind of features that you want in a sewing machine to then buy something really nice later on. And you will want to upgrade. Probably like many of us here have several sewing machines, but that's later down the track. So borrow a machine, get a good quality second-hand one, or if you really have to, there are the $100 brand new machines that you can get. If that's all you have access to, then do that. They're not the best quality, and that's why I would pick a good second-hand one that's a bit older over the sort of cheaper $99 ones, but there is something there that every single one of us has access to, either borrowing, getting a second-hand one, or buying the cheap new one. That will be absolutely fine for you to get started. The next allocation I have would be learning aids, and I would allocate $55 of my budget to learning aids. I can only do this with hindsight because I've been there and I know the process, but if I was going to learn again, I would absolutely invest in learning. So yes, you should learn from all different types of sources. Here on YouTube is fantastic. Lots of free resources. There's lots of free resources on the internet these days. Everything is there. But there is also cause for investing in some good sewing books. And I've made several videos here and here. I'll link them all down below on sewing books, ones that I like, essentials to get started, all of these types of things. So I won't go into detail about what kind of books, but some really good all-rounder sewing books are a must. And I would also enroll in, well, of course, I would roll in Vintage Sewing School. That is my own online course that I run because it is exactly the kind of online learning course I wanted when I was learning to sew, and that's what I've created and now teach all my students there. But find something. There is so inexpensive to enroll in these online courses these days, whether it's a membership or a one-off course, but learning. Invest in the learning because you need something step by step when you're learning, and you need to be told in order the things that you need to learn. So I would do all of these. I would YouTube, I would get books, and I would enroll in an online course. And I'll leave links to Vintage Sewing School down below. Of course, if you are interested, I have a free class there that is always there for you to help learning your sewing machine and just get started. But enroll in these because learning and having access to this will save you so much money and all the mistakes that you make on fabric, etc. later, and will just speed up the learning process so much, having a helping hand to help you teach yourself this process. So I would invest in learning aids. Absolutely. 100%. You need someone to help hold your hand through the process to make it so much easier. Next on the budget is the sewing essentials for my sewing kit. I would spend $25. Now I have lumped all these together because, as I said, we're not getting nitpicky on individual pricings, but you don't need anything fancy here for your kit, and you need very few to get started. So, and I've made so many videos on essentials to get started, sewing things that you can just have at home that you can use. I'll link all those videos down below as well. There's heaps. So I would get a pair of fabric scissors. I would invest in that, but honestly, you can get a pair for about $12 or so, very cheaply to just get started. Your kitchen scissors are probably not very sharp, and you'll find it so much more pleasurable, I promise, with a pair of sharp scissors. Just get a reel of thread, either get natural or pick your favorite color, or black and a white, just something, don't need anything fancy, just obviously reel of thread. I would get some chalk, an unpick, some snips, honestly, all these things, honestly, a couple of dollars each. And I would get a pack of machine needles. Get some, if you're just using a plain woven fabric in a cotton, something like a 12 or a 14 size in a universal will be perfect, but you probably will need some extra ones and you'll want a brand new sharp one in your machine, so get yourself some needles. Those ones will be fine. Also, I have made other videos on sewing machine needles. If you're interested, I'll link it down below too. And if you're really lucky, honestly, you could probably thrift all of these little sewing bits as well. You might be able to, or they might be able to find some on your local classifieds, someone giving away their sewing stash, their sewing box of stuff like this. Yeah. Or it comes with the machine that you borrowed. They'll have all these bits and pieces, so you can save yourself money there and spend it somewhere else. But if you need to, you can get these brand new for just a few dollars each. You don't need anything fancy. Okay, next up on the list of the budget is the fabric. I know, are we down here already? I would spend $10 on fabric. This probably surprises you, right? So what I would get is I'd spend my $10 and I would get lots of thrifted bed sheets, 100% cotton bed sheets, just for practicing. So trust me, those of you that have made a few garments already, which would be most of you, you'll know that the first garments that you make, although you're really proud, and you should be at the time, how wonderful to get through it, and you've made it and they're fantastic, it doesn't take you very long, a few garments more, before you look back at that first one and think, oh my goodness, we're learning, and that's the point. And so there's no point spending on any fabric, anything. Get some thrifted bed sheets, because then you won't feel bad about just practicing and just getting in and maybe making a mess of it and making mistakes. It doesn't matter. It's just some bed sheets that you don't hold dear and near to, like your favorite printed fabric that you've found and hoarded for 12 months. Don't do that. Just get some, as I said, you might even have them in your own cupboard. You can just get them from your stash there just for practicing. So do not spend anything very much on fabric. The next one is the pattern, and I would again, $10. What I would do is I would go to the thrift store or have a look on eBay right now. All of you have access to a sewing pattern, and I would just get some older pattern from 70s, 80s, 90s and 2000s are probably really good, because honestly, a pattern is a pattern. They haven't changed since then. They still pretty much look almost exactly the same and identical. And if you've invested in the learning aids, you'll have a course that will take you through step by step on how to read it, how to use it, and all of that business. So I would definitely not spend a lot of money on a pattern to begin with, because a skirt is a skirt, whether it's from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. An A-line skirt is an A-line skirt. A pencil skirt is a pencil skirt. You only want something really simple and easy to just get started with. There are lots of free PDF print patterns to print at home as well if you want to start with a bag or something like that. So you can absolutely get away with very inexpensive patterns. Either thrift, go to eBay right now and Google it. You can get something even with shipping for $10 and under. I mean, look at this one, $1. I could actually get 10 patterns at the thrift store. But all of us can spend a minimal on that pattern. You don't need anything much. You're just learning. It's about learning the process to start with. That amazing design you have in your head, that comes later. And by practicing, having the fabric to practice on, having your learning aids to get you there, you will absolutely get there. It just takes practice and you will get to sew those amazing things that you dream of. So what do you think? How does my budget allocation meet what would you spend your budget allocation on? I would absolutely love to hear it down below. Do leave the comments, because remember to read them too, particularly if you're brand new. It'll give you some ideas on where to search for some of these sewing items that we need to get started. And remember, if you are just starting and you're about to get a machine and you're thinking of sewing, do not let any of these things get in the way of you starting. Just get started. You'll accumulate and build your sewing kit and your stash as you go along in time. It's all about practice and getting skilled. That's what makes the difference. Not fancy equipment, not fancy tools. It's the time and the effort, the practice you put in that makes a difference. Of course, the fancy tools are nice and they do make it easier, but it's just up to you and practicing. Okay. Leave me those comments down below on your best tips on what you would spend your budget on. I really look forward to reading them. And until next time, my sewing friends, happy sewing. Bye.